Welcome to the Global Citizen Life podcast. Today on the show, we have Vashti Kanahele. Welcome, Vashti.
Hi, Sally. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today.
Vashti, you are an author and a functional medicine practitioner, and you've lived in several countries. And I would say most of them are ones that people don't traditionally consider moving to, like Baghdad or Beirut. So tell us a little bit about what's brought you to those countries. We'll start there.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I met my husband way back in the early 2000s, and he was and still is works for the State Department, the U.S. State Department. When you see these places on the list of places that I've lived, it's because we've been going there for our assignments, overseas assignments at the U.S. embassies and consulates abroad. So my first foray into the foreign service life was 2009, and we were assigned to Baghdad, Iraq. And so we went there for a year. My husband had previously been there on assignment. But for me, that was, hey, here we are, flying in a Black Hawk helicopter over the desert and wondering, what am I doing?
That's not a typical first move abroad, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, exactly. I had lived very briefly teaching English and working in a health clinic in Thailand in 2004, but that was just for a couple of months. So this really was that first, entrance into life abroad. And it's very different than a lot of people that are on the podcast who move for a variety of reasons. And this was just, our assignment. It was 1 year, and it is vastly different because we weren't opening bank accounts and trying to find places to live. We were strictly, just there on the US Embassy compound for that year. And then the same with places like Beirut. That was our next assignment. Vastly, vastly different than living in Baghdad in a war, but somewhere that I would love to live, actually. We weren't sure what to expect. And I think if you asked both of us, we would say it was our favorite place to live at that time.
Mhm. And I mean, that's interesting because I think, a lot of times as people who watch the show and listen, there's a number of, I'll call them typical
Hmm.
places, kind of like the top 10, 12-ish places that most people go to live. Um, but there's so many other places in the world that have potential. And I say potential because obviously not every place is great for everyone. We have to know
Right.
who we are, what we want, what we desire. But I also think a lot of places get overlooked as well because they're not that kind of top 10 places. So don't hear about them a lot. And then the other part is the media, which I'm not a fan of mainstream media. A lot of places are, oh, don't go there. It's bad. It's dangerous. It's so like third world terrible. You won't get any services. It's, like they just make places look really bad when they're
Yeah,
truly not. And a prime example of
absolutely.
that is Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And like Colombia years ago, of course, 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't want to be there. Now it's thriving with expats. And even still Mexico, sometimes when I read through some comments and stuff, and people are like, why would anybody want to move to Mexico? It's so dangerous. It's no. And then, but when you talk to people who live there, they're like, I feel safer here than I did in the United States.
Oh yeah, I have friends that have lived in Mexico for years and they love it. And it's just that often we, like you said, what's portrayed to us isn't reality necessarily. And then everybody's comfort level is different
Right.
on where for me, I love going places that are off the beaten path. You can find great communities, you can actually have excellent services and a really high quality of life. And so for me, somewhere like Cambodia, Thailand, Mexico, Colombia, I would definitely move there. Other people, that's just, maybe it's more Western Europe, which is also great. Those are, all wonderful places to live, but we don't, like you said, we're not necessarily told that these are, great places to live.
Right, right. Well, like, right now, I'm in the country of Montenegro. And a lot of times when
Mm,
I say that, people are like, Monaco? And I'm like, oh no, no, no,
No,
not close. Well, not that far away from, but not the same.
geographically not far, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's a very small country. Complete population, they say right now is around 630,000 people
yeah,
in the entire country. So, I mean,
right. It's a
it is
small
quite
country.
small. It's beautiful. And
Hmm.
like every place, pros and cons, but it really is booming right now of like the amount of hotels they're building and condos they're building. And it's the more I'm hearing more about it too in different articles and publications and things. So it's starting to get out there more.
For
But what
sure. I'm
I'm
seeing it on lists as well, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it there's the Budva Riviera. I mean, okay. I mean, it is the coastline that goes all the way down Croatia, Montenegro,
Yes.
Albania to Greece. So, um, but yeah, there's no Amazon Prime. So if that's what you need, it's not gonna be the place for you, at least
Right.
not yet, right? I mean, with 650,000 people, people also have to remember there's a lot of conveniences and things that aren't here because there just isn't the people to get those conveniences here. It's not worth some companies opening up. Like
Absolutely.
there's no IKEA,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that there aren't, but for other people who don't care, great. It's got lower tax rates than a lot of other places. So that's a
And if you're
bonus for some
looking at
people
things
too.
like investment visas or golden visas or any of
Mhm.
those, that really matters, you know. And as places like Greece are starting to uptick in their tax amounts, then people will look other places.
Right, right. And let's talk a little bit about your experience in Cambodia. And I'm a
Mm,
little bit interested in that for personal
mhm.
reasons because my
Sure.
plan later this year is to check out more of Asia. I haven't spent much time in Asia.
Okay.
Ideally, my plan ideally is to get to Malaysia and then do Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. And I'm looking at
Okay.
them from different perspectives because I do plan to relocate later this year, and potentials are Malaysia and Thailand are two that I'm potentially. And I don't know yet, and I would love to. I've always wanted to go to, Vietnam and Cambodia. I just don't think that they would be places for me to live for the next 5 years, although I could be wrong because I haven't been there. So I
Hmm.
don't know. So, but I know that perspective is different that we need to consider when we're going places and scouting out, and there's the difference of travel, vacation time, hang out. These are all wonderful,
Right.
but then there's the reality of, okay, what about living day to
Living
day
there.
expenses, cost of living, obviously healthcare,
Hmm.
a number of those things.
Yeah, and I've been to all four of those countries, so I can, can speak to them. And
Perfect.
I've lived in Thailand and Cambodia. So, um, Cambodia, we lived there for 2 years, again with the embassy. So when I'm talking about living overseas with the embassy, the U.S. Foreign Service, we are there working. So we have a different sort of community. We land, we have housing because we are there to work, right?
Right.
So it is a different thing than if I and my husband are looking to retire to Thailand. That's high on our list. That would be a different thing because we're going there just solo, right?
Mm,
Without that infrastructure to help us as we move. So Cambodia was great. This was it was a decade ago, I guess, that we lived there. And so it has changed dramatically now in what the infrastructure is, because when we were living in Phnom Penh, it was maybe just right under 1 million people in the capital, which is pretty small for a capital city. And so there were tons of expats, though. I will say it is, you have a lot of people from New Zealand and Australia, and a lot of the Brits live there as well. So there is a very vibrant community when you're talking about expat communities. If you're looking for an American expat community specifically, might not be your place, but you're going to find a lot of English speaking expats there, which can be really helpful when you're trying to find a community and you might not speak the local
mm,
language. I loved living there. I liked the smallness of it. I loved learning about the history and how they've come out of living under Pol Pot's regime, and just all that there was is this country has lifted itself up out of those times. I had great friends there. The only thing that wasn't really um, then there was the medical care. Like I was pregnant when we lived there, and I moved to Thailand just for a few months to have my youngest daughter in Bangkok because they just didn't have the neonatal care. Actually, women have babies there every day. But if you're looking for like, you're high risk or you're needing like possibly neonatal care on the other side, that would be something to consider. However, living there, I mean, you can have a really good quality of life.
Right.
And there are a lot of services that help expats come in, get settled, find apartments, find villas, and get settled. So I think you could be very happy there. Um, but it was, I can't speak to it right at this moment on the medical side, was just lacking a little bit in that medical infrastructure. That's
Hmm.
why we went to
And that's,
Thailand.
I mean, that is, it is good to know. And of course, um, even where in a country somebody is. So like
Yeah,
I here in Montenegro, I haven't had to use the medical, but I'm a little bit like, I've heard it's lacking in specialty type
right,
things. Um, I lived in Spain, Barcelona, great Medicare. But if you're living small town, ruralish area, you're going to have to travel a ways or something to get to the bigger places. And so that's something I always say to people, it depends also to where in the country you're living.
yes,
And, ideally great some places, if you're healthy, that's great. But keep in mind, things happen,
right.
unexpected. We're healthy one day and then the next day we've got a problem. So,
Hmm.
and over time things are getting better everywhere.
Absolutely. Yes. And especially Southeast Asia is really becoming a bit of a medical hub, a bit of, medical tourism, especially Thailand. So if you're living in the adjacent countries, you can easily fly there. I went to a lot of OB appointments, just hop on a plane, go see my OB, come back the next day. You know what I mean? It wasn't, um, the out of cost expense there is not
Right.
high.
And that sounds, I know, to a lot of people in North America, they're like, "What?" And I get it because I'm from Canada. You don't just fly anywhere for a day, like, and I partly because Canada and the United States is so big, you have to fly far to get to another
Far,
country. But
right.
in a lot of other places, like within Europe, 4 hours, I can be in so many countries.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's like Cambodia to Thailand's like a 45-minute hour long flight, I think. I mean, it's not far and they have
Mhm.
10 flights a day or something like that. Or even if we had to medevac my oldest daughter when we were there and we went down to Singapore, still only 4.5 hour flight, but you are in really top-notch medical care, right?
Mhm.
Same with Thailand, I would say, just extremely top-notch medical care. So if you're looking to retire to Thailand, it has all the things that you could really want: great food, warm and lovely people, wonderful culture. And then if you're wondering, oh, am I going to be okay if I'm sick there? Yes, they have, very affordable healthcare.
Mhm. What, maybe what were some of the negatives that you found or things that I just don't like to use the word negatives, but things
Yeah.
maybe that you
Challenges,
missed or were kind of like, that's I wish that was better or different.
at which place?
Um, well, let's go both with both Cambodia and Thailand.
Um, I mean, I guess in Bangkok, especially, it's just the traffic. It's like so
Mhm.
congested, right? And like I was very pregnant there and had my daughter there, but the taxis wouldn't want me to get in the car because they're like, "What if you have the baby?" Because
Oh my God.
literally the traffic is so bad, So you're just hoping, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to go into labor in the middle of the night, hopefully, and be able to get to the hospital rapidly." But I think there it's just really like the amount of people. But if you're living outside of Bangkok, that's not really a problem. You can go to Chiang Mai, any other number of places that are have lots of expats and you don't have like the crush of people. Um, in Cambodia, I'm trying to remember if there were like it's just always sometimes hard to get things done when there's language barrier or
Right.
things are done on a different timeline. Americans, North Americans, I think in general, were very punctual.
Yes.
And you sort of have to really embrace this, like, oh, it's going to be done sometime today.
It really is interesting that I find North America, so Canada, US, um, Germany, I'll say I think France too.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know about Australia or New Zealand, but for sure those ones, and I'm assuming probably with Australia and New Zealand that punctuality is like you're on time, you're a few minutes early and very
Yes,
punctual. But out of 200-ish countries and territories and regions around the world, it's really only a handful that are really punctual because Costa Rica, I've lived there, Spain, here in Montenegro. And Montenegro's pretty good, but I mean, it's super small, so it's pretty easy to be punctual.
yeah,
But so many other places just aren't. Like
right.
Italy, Spain, they're not.
No, when we lived in Nigeria. It was so funny because my husband was in the military before he joined the State Department. So he's like, on time is late and early is on time. And so, but there, when you get an invitation to something and it says 7 p.m., that really means like 8 or 8:30, right? Like it's
Oh.
much later. So he'd be like, let's go. And I'm like, we're good. Like no one is going to be there but the Americans. So, that was but it's good for us to experience this like
Mhm.
more relaxed state. It can be frustrating if you're like, oh, I'm going to take off for work because I'm waiting for the electrician to come over and then they don't come in a timely manner. But just in general, to not have that crushing pace of life is actually really valuable.
Mhm. Well, I agree, and it's interesting too how we all say we want it, right? Oh, want that slower pace of life. Like I don't really know anybody, or at least not that I can think about this moment, that says I love the go go go. Like I'm sure there's some people that do, but generally most people are like I'd like to slow down and have a slower pace of life. And in theory, we do, or in most situations, we do, except for when it comes to getting our car fixed, needing the electrician to fix it. Then we want now. And it is challenging to then actually slow down. We enjoy it when we're on vacation because we have nothing to do for that week or 2 weeks. We're like,
Right.
love this, could live like this. This is great because you have nothing to do. But when things need to be done, that adjustment period is harder than what people think it's gonna be.
And I think we had that moment in COVID kind of, and everyone was like, oh, cool. Like we're going to never go back to the rush, rush, rush. And then we went back to the rush, rush, rush.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting time, and I think, some people really learned a lot. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of silver linings to it, only because I try to find silver linings.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of obviously really bad things as well, uh, but I think in a way, though, at least I hope for a lot of people, it helped kinda open their eyes a little bit to what's important. I mean, I know a
Yeah.
lot of people we've gone back to the rush, rush, rush to the because it's easy to get caught up in that materialistic lifestyle, and I think most
Absolutely.
of Europe and North America is a very materialistic lifestyle, and marketers are good at their
Yes.
job. They're
Yeah.
due to sell, and that's, what they do, and they're good at it, but once you get away from it, that's when you really kinda see it for how it is, and, I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting things, but I also think that when we're away from it, we really realize that for the most part, those things don't make us happy. We get joy from it momentarily, we get that hit of dopamine that, like, "Oh, great, I got a new dress. Oh, great, I got a big TV," but, "Oh, great, I got a new car. I'm never gonna eat in it." 2 months later, eating in it, it's not clean, like, the dress you maybe did or did not
Yes.
wear once,
Right.
and
It's the instant gratification.
Right.
of rampant consumerism.
Yeah, and not and I'm sure stuff like that does exist in other countries, not all of them, but there are some that still find, especially when I look at Costa Rica and, even here in Montenegro, it's more of time, like, you see people out walking every day.
Yes.
Costa Rica, the sunset, people would be at the beach, like, there would be
Yep.
nobody at the beach all day long, but sunset time, everybody comes out, has a drink,
Same in
maybe alcohol, maybe
Curacao.
non-alcohol, but just
Yep.
and it's like day's over, it's sunset, let's get out, we go for a walk and enjoy that.
Mhm.
And same with here in Montenegro, a lot of just walking and exercise and things like that. I mean, even here, what I like, and it's like such a silly little thing to like, but like they leave their tables and chairs outside the restaurants and cafes without being chained up all night long, and they're still there in the morning. And people will use them, like, I'll see people say they'll go to, like, like, a little corner shop store
Mhm.
and get something to drink or some snacks or whatever, and they'll sit out and chat, and then they clean up after themselves, and it's clean, and the
Yeah.
tables and chairs are there, and I just think, "Gosh, why couldn't like, why are North American people and other European countries not possible, chained up, put inside,
Yeah.
everything because it'll just disappear, and so I do like that kind of safety, security, just you can leave something out and it's gonna be fine, like, nobody's
Mhm.
gonna just steal stuff, and I do
Right.
miss that when I'm in other countries.
Yeah. When we lived in Curacao, everyone had their doors open all the time. Like front door, because it's just, Caribbean life. The winds are nice, everything is. So you just kind of live in this sort of indoor outdoor life, but it's open, and so there wasn't this closed up sort of fearful state. I mean, everyone had dogs and stuff, but it's like it was really nice. And back to like the idea of like all the things that we need or think we need. Every time I go back to the United States after being abroad for a long time, and most specifically, I remember this after we'd come back from Baghdad, where we didn't have access to stores and things like that there, really. We were just living in the green zone. I walked into, say, Target. It wasn't Target, it was probably Safeway or something. And I was like, there's so much choice. Like, it is an overwhelming amount of things available to us. Choice is great, but like, do we need 85 different types of cereal? you know, I
We don't
remember
need
I
any
went in,
cereal, it's not
we
good
do
for
not
us.
need any
Yeah.
cereal, but I remember
But
walking
right.
in and then I like literally turned around and just walked out. I was like, this is overwhelming. I don't even know what's happening here.
Right.
Yeah.
I can agree to that because here in Montenegro, we just had we call it the mega mall, and it's only because the mega market, which is a grocery
Yes.
store, is half of the size of the mall. I mean, it's 2 stories and it's
Hypermarket.
not that
Yeah.
big at all.
Yeah.
Um, but when I walked into that grocery store compared to the other ones, I was like, wow, there's so much more stuff here. This is great because the other ones are quite a bit smaller, and a lot of things are very, very seasonal.
Yeah.
Even like produce that's available here is probably, I mean, compared to some North American grocery stores, a tenth of what's available.
Sure.
There's like you walk around, I could do a lap around all of it in without rushing probably a minute.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it was the same like that in Nigeria and other places too, Cambodia, or you have to go
Mhm.
to like five different grocery stores to gather the things that you need. If you're looking for something specific to like
Right.
North America, you're going to have to go find those places, that
Mhm.
might sell that stuff. But yeah, it's
I think too. I mean,
definitely,
it's part of the adventure. It then when I go back to Canada or travel or even comparison back to Spain, um, and I remember the first time I was gone from Spain for quite a while and traveling a lot and lots of places where it was just grocery stores and things, and I was so excited to walk into what I would consider a reasonable, like a large grocery store. I was like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, I'm going to know what everything is. I'm going to understand it. There's going to be more selection. And so there is that appreciation of having a lot of selection Um, again,
Yes.
it comes back to what do we need? There's a lot
Mhm.
of stuff even at the grocery stores here that I just don't buy because there's just a lot of types of food that I just don't buy.
Right. Yeah, I
But
mean,
I
if you're
do
sticking
miss
to more whole foods, you're not going
yeah,
to, yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But one thing I really miss is a lot of kind of tropical fruits and vegetables.
I bet.
That's that's my big miss that
Well, when you take your trip later this year and
oh,
you
like
go,
mangoes are my favorite. When I lived in Costa Rica, like fresh
oh,
mangoes all the time. It was amazing.
yeah,
And now just even the last time I spent a lot for considering it was like one mango, like for it, and I was just so disappointed because it didn't even taste good. I was like, I
taste,
just
yeah.
want good mangoes.
You will find them. I mean, the amount of delicious fruit that you're going to find in Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia is amazing. Like just
Mhm.
the durian, that's like my least favorite of of the fruits.
Well, you
There's
can't like
also
everything.
signs. There's signs that say like you can't open it there because it smells like a lot like I guess what we would call like dirty socks or something. But it's very,
Okay.
very fragrant. And you'll see signs all over like you can't have the durian out or open or whatever.
It's that powerful.
Yes.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So I think it's even on all the public transportation in Thailand and stuff. But um
Those are,
you will
I mean,
definitely
just
eat well.
yeah, and those are just the unique rules of
Yeah.
the adventure of living in a different place, and,
Hmm.
I mean, if it is that strong smelling, we would appreciate that rule
Right.
because we wouldn't want 10 people on the bus having that.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
And so you are getting ready for another move. You are going
Yes.
to go to Egypt soon.
Yes. We leave this summer for 3 years in Cairo.
Okay.
Yeah.
That will be interesting. And again, the great thing that the I guess like kind of the benefits with the way that you travel because it is because of your husband's work, you automatically have that built-in community, right? Because there's people from his work that he gets to know and you get to know and you have that built-in community. But being in Egypt, there's going to be a lot of things to discover and places
Oh,
to
I can't
go and
wait. Yeah.
bit you'll definitely have a lot more freedom than Baghdad, for example.
Right. Yeah. So Baghdad was literally a war zone at that time. Like there was,
Right.
I went off the compound when I would go to the airport to fly out to Jordan. My husband, due to the nature of his job, was out and about more than me, but my job didn't take me outside the compound much. So, I remember we would used to go over to the USAID compound and then for dinner sometimes. And then we ate out one time in the entire year at a Syrian restaurant. That was still in the green zone. There was no, obviously, we weren't going all over the place, just from a resources perspective and things like that and safety. But
Right.
um, Cairo, there's just so much history. I've been there as a tourist before, but again, we were talking about there's a real difference between living and visiting places. And even though we
Mhm.
have that built-in community, I reinvent myself every time we move. You reinvent
Right.
yourself every time you move.
Mhm.
And so that I think that's a special skill set also that you learn to embrace and that's something that when I wrote my book, Passports and Parasites, I talk a lot about the power of community and how it has gotten me through, phases of my life where I was away from my family for most of the last 15 years. And, it is very much an adventure to live in places, but life still happens. You know,
Right.
you get sick, you have miscarriages, there are all sorts of things that happen and you don't have your loved ones with you necessarily. And
Mhm.
so the power in creating a community, and for me, it's having community in the sure, the embassy community, but it's also creating community with local, in this case, say Egyptians, um,
Mm.
expats from other countries. It's really important to have that large group, I think, and you're going to have your few really close friends, but some of my closest friends are Canadians. They're Brits, they're Aussies, they're people from other countries, and because of the power of the internet and the age that we live in, we can talk all the time.
Right. Right. The lifestyle that you had that you have, sorry, would have been a lot more challenging 30 years ago
Absolutely.
for Facebook beforehand because you're rebuilding and I do want to talk a little bit about more about community, but you have the phone calls, and for those who are younger may not understand, but when you could only do a collect call or you
Yep.
paid 50 cents a minute or like it was very expensive, and so those calls were kept to a minimum. And I mean, writing letters, sure, it's great, but it's not the same. So that relocation is a lot more, it's a lot harder than
Yeah.
how it is now. And that sense of community, not even sense, but that like that having community, I think a lot of times people don't talk about it as much. It's really underrated. And
hmm
it's fine when you're in your 20s and stuff like that and you're traveling and going and things. You're kind of like, "Oh, it's fine."
hmm
I don't want to say more resilient, but just things don't bother us as much generally when we're younger. But as we get older, it is really important to have that community for a variety of reasons, whether you're having kids or you do have kids, or now you're the empty nester and you're
Yep.
you're getting older and you're like, who's my community? Because for a number of things, if you get sick, if you have a spouse or partner, great, they can make you soup and go to the store. But if you're single, you don't? Like, I'm
Yeah.
single, I've done my travels, and even here in Montenegro, part of the reason why I'm leaving is it's twofold. I don't have community here, but that's kind of my own fault because I haven't spent enough time here to build community.
hmm
And sometimes I think like, what if I fell down the stairs and broke my leg? Who do I have to call to come help me out? Now there's a few people, but not enough of a community that would make me
Yeah.
comfortable. And last year, I ended up having 3 unexpected emergency surgeries. I was in the United States. I had a lady who I now consider a friend, but at the time she was, we only knew each other for a few months, and she was the one that
hmm
took me to the hospital and was there with me and emerged those times. And then when I was there by myself, I just really realized I'm like, this sucks. I'm not that
Yeah.
I'm being sociable when I'm in the hospital and things like that, but it was like, it would be nice to kinda have somebody here because
Yeah.
here I am by myself. And that
hmm
really for me, and a few other events, I was like, that community. I wanna be in a place that I really enjoy. I wanna be in a place that is very entrepreneurial because that's how I am. Like, I love connecting with other business people no matter what
hmm
type of business they do.
hmm
I do want sunshine and warm weather. I do want fresh
Yes.
tropical fruits. Like, those things make me happy, and I
Yep.
I need, be honest with myself. Those things make me happy. I like those things. Those are the things that I want, and so I need to and want to be in a place that has those things because that's what makes me happy.
Yeah. I am with you on the warm weather and beaches. If I can, it's just so nice. I don't know. It's something as I've gotten older, I just really appreciate the warmth.
Mm.
And it's like my body needs to be warm. Being back in the United States and like you can relate to this as a Canadian, and it's just like the winter. I'm like, no, I don't need to do this.
I was speaking with my brother a while ago, and he's not doing well, and we just lost my mom a couple months ago,
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
this was last month, and I'm like, do you want me to, do you want me to come back? Do you want me to come to Canada? And he's like, well, and I was like, if somebody says to you, I'm not doing well, I'm like, that's most people don't reach out and say I'm not doing well.
Right.
Um, and he's like, "Well, if you can and if you want." And I'm like, "Well, can and want are 2 different things. Like, it's January, Canada. So want is not part of the equation because
No.
the answer to that is a simple no, I don't want to be in Canada in January. Um,
Right.
but I mean, I'm willing, but I'll be there in the beginning of March, which I mean, it's not January, but I mean, it
It will still
still
be
could
cold.
be. a f- I was talking to somebody yesterday. We're recording this right now, February, and it was minus 35 in Edmonton, which is a couple hours north of Calgary, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I don't
Yeah.
want to be there.
It's so cold. That's so cold.
It's so cold. But the other part of my brain is knowing like it's temporary. And
Yeah.
I've got things to deal with there and of course family to see and friends to visit with. And then I'm
Hmm.
calling that kind of my transition point because then from there is ideally, the plan to then go to Asia and start checking out different places in Asia. So my plan is like, well, as long as I'm out of there before winter hits. Like and not that I'll be there and I've got friends in the US and things like
Hmm.
that, but I'm just like, yeah, I won't I'll be there for a while for sure, but
Hmm.
not too
Not
long.
into
I
the
don't want to
next
be living
winter.
through winter. Like that's no, like no.
No, time to go to Southeast Asia.
That's right. And enjoy the warm weather and food and just figure out what works. I mean, it is quite possible and I'm very aware that I could go there and I know I'm going to enjoy it. There's no doubt about that, but I could go to all of those places and then just think, no, it's not right for me to live here. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure I'll find something, but if I just think like if if I just go to one city in each place, like let's just say, for example, if I was like in KL, Malaysia, and then I do Bangkok, and then if I only go to one in each city, that's pretty limiting because I don't like, let's say Bangkok, for example, because what does concern me about that is all the people and the quality of the air. Because I enjoy
Yeah.
being outside. I like jogging outside. I like walkable. And if there's a lot of air pollution and things like that, then that doesn't matter if I like the place, it's just not gonna work for me, and so,
Hmm.
again, as people are listening and watching, it's knowing what works for you, right? Like,
Yep.
I know I love being outside and outdoors. I can tolerate people for a while, but then I also like breaks from people, so being in a big city is great because there's lots to do, and I love
Hmm.
that, but the noise, the traffic can get to me, and I do like jogging in parks, and so
Oh,
the
they have
quality
great
of air is
parks.
also important, so
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
exactly. You can look at Chiang Mai too. I mean, it's, more up in the mountains. They do have some air quality issues during the winter months because it's kind of a bit of a bowl, but that's somewhere we've been looking at. And I loved it when I visited. It's just it's smaller, it's still cosmopolitan, lots of people from all over the world. Great. I love food, so I always need to have somewhere that has like a lot of good food
good.
options if possible.
Yep, yep.
Um, and another place is Krabi, which is more south, but also really quite a lot of expats in that area as well. Another area of Thailand that we're exploring. We've been to all of those places, but again, living and visiting
Mhm.
different spots. And KL is great too, just another really big city.
Right, right, and I mean, the thing that right now is a bit of a perk for KL is Malaysia is a territorial tax country,
Hmm.
and so money made outside of Malaysia at present time is tax-free, and I always say at present
Yes.
time because things change.
Yeah.
Rules change things Dubai used to be corporate tax free. Now it's 9%
Uh,
over, I think it's about $100,000, which is still
yeah.
relatively low. Um, will that change in the future? I believe eventually, like in 10-ish years or so, we'll kind of have a worldwide flat corporate tax because
Hmm.
the countries are already trying to do that. It is a perk, but it's one thing that I was even talking with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, "Well, I can do this, and I can go here, and this tax rate, this," and I just said, "You know what? Like, yes, it's great to lower taxes. I mean, that's what I help people do to get, ideally down to zero or single digits and move abroad and do things." I said, "But you also have to think about what is convenient for you. Like,
Yeah.
there's a cost to that, whether if you're in some of these countries like Belize, which is 0 to 1% tax, but how
Yes.
hard is it to get paid and to get your money to Belize and outside of Belize? Because a lot of other governments don't really like Belize. And if you're having a hassle getting your money or blacklisted bank accounts, I'm like, that's a
Yeah.
problem. And somebody else that had moved a while ago to Cyprus, I just get his newsletter. He wasn't a client or anything. And he's just like, I've been here for 2 years and I hate it. He's like, I'll never move anywhere just for tax purposes. And I just thought, well, I mean, you're living there. Just to move because of that doesn't make sense. Like you have to enjoy where you're living and sometimes you pay for convenience. And what do
Right.
those taxes cover as well? So we have to kind of look at that big picture of what do you want, what's important to you, and then what are your best options? And if everything that lines up for you to have a no tax lifestyle, that's great, but that's limited as to where you can live, where your business is, and a number of things. And some people just are not
Hmm.
comfortable with the restrictions of that, where then
Right.
there's or more where, yeah, you pay a little bit. You pay some and there's more freedoms, more opportunities, different things. And it's working all those different things. So Malaysia right now has that little advantage,
Right.
but if I'm not absolutely loving it, to me it doesn't matter because I would rather be in a place where I am paying a little bit more for taxes because I'm getting a lifestyle that I enjoy. And
Right.
and that's kind of that
You want
bigger
to
picture
love where you're
too.
living.
You wanna love where you're living, and if the cost, sometimes I see often still about, "Oh, you can live, in this country for under $1,000 a month." I'm like, "Can you?" Like, okay, maybe if you're
Maybe.
really rural, small town, hamlet type thing,
Yeah.
very basic housing, and if you're into that, great, but
Great.
a lot of things that people don't realize though too is, okay, let's say that is a lifestyle that you want and you love it, and you can live there for under $1,000 a month. If how much money are you making? Because you need to qualify for a visa or
Right.
residency program, and I don't there might be 1 or 2 in the world that will allow you to live there if you're only making $1,000 a month, like,
Like Panama, maybe. But it's right.
maybe
That's
or
very close to that.
yeah.
Maybe 1,500. Like there's very few.
Yeah, because
That would
even
just be
even
Social
Spain
Security.
yeah.
Yeah.
2, 3,000, 4,000 is what a lot of them are now looking for. Those
Yeah.
digital nomad visas, people are like, "Oh, I can do the digital nomad." Sure, and most of them you have to be a minimum 2 to 4,000
Yep.
depending upon the country.
Hmm.
And so, great if you can live there off 1,000, but you have to be making 3 to 4 to get your residency status. So,
Absolutely.
you've
And
gotta
then
look
they've
at that.
changed a lot of those for the retirement visas too. It's increased
Yes.
exponentially.
Mhm.
With Greece being one that really changed. We love Greece, and we're like, "Oh, we're gonna retire there," and then they changed the laws around
Mhm.
the residency and getting your retirement visa, so we were just like, "Ew."
Yeah, and it's something that if people are looking at that stuff, I mean you wanna start moving on things like that sooner than later. All of the citizenship by investment programs in the Caribbean used to be not all of them, but, most of them were $100,000, now they're $200,000.
Yeah, yeah,
That things are going up because I get it, countries, they need investment, and it's a
they
great way
do.
to get investment, but then after a certain point, they're like, "Oh, okay, now there's starting to be these ripple effects. We don't need these many
Yeah,
people,"
it's a
or
drain on their
things are becoming more
resources.
expensive. We want people who
Mhm,
are making more money, not the minimal. We want people who are gonna bring in more money and spend more money here because that's
right.
what we need for our economy, and so
Yep.
they change those rules, and it
Yeah,
makes
makes
sense.
sense. Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's just yeah, they're adapting to what their countries need, you know?
Right.
So, and I think another aspect too is sometimes people think they want to move places and like you may have the tax situation may be really beneficial, but
Mhm.
it's like, do you have aging parents? Do you have
Mhm.
kids in college somewhere else? You know, what is it to how how much of a flight is it to get home, so to speak,
Yep.
right? You know, Um, and those are other considerations that sometimes things look really good on paper and then you get there and you're like, oh, it's 72 hours of flying to get back. Like my family's all on the west coast of the United States, so living in Southeast Asia is actually not that bad, right? Because
Right.
I can get a direct flight from Bangkok to Seattle. So, that's one thing. Whereas, like, oh, we want to move to Morocco and get a visa or something. That's actually almost further, even though it's feels closer.
Right. That's how I am with Montenegro because
Hmm.
I need to take a minimum, and it's usually done, but it's 3 flights.
Yeah.
It's 3 flights to get because I have to go to Western Canada as well, and it's
You probably have to go
three.
into Vancouver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it's 3, sometimes 4 flights. I'm like, "Oh god, it's so many, and it's
Hmm.
more than a whole day." If I'm up to be at the airport for the first flight that literally leaves out of Montenegro in the morning, it's a really long day. Now there are daily flights, but again, it's a long day, so,
Hmm.
it is something to also take into consideration as
Hmm.
well. All of those things you said, parents,
Yeah.
kids, even just how often do you wanna go back? If you're like, "Yeah, I wanna go back for a week," well, I mean, is it worth 3 flights to go back for a week? For me, it's not. That's why when I go back to Canada, I'm there for long amounts of time, and recently because of my mom's health and stuff, I was there most of the year last year, and years before, which was fine for me because my work is online. It was actually
Right.
kinda good. I was in the time zone here. It's not too bad. It's still manageable, where now I have to consider that going to
Same.
Asia.
Yeah.
Am I gonna be on that focused North American target, or am I gonna look more to Australia and that because those time zones are completely opposite, and I love being up during the day. I love the sun, as mentioned. I don't wanna be working at midnight till 6 o'clock in the morning
That's not
because
healthy for
that's
you
working
anyway.
hours, like, I'm
No.
I'm just not gonna do that, so
Yeah.
those are things to consider as well if people
Yep.
are looking to move.
Yeah, because you could say, "Oh, that's where the Caribbean is great if you're really focused, or South or Central America. If you're really focused on North America time zones, those work really, really
Mm,
well." I was lucky those 3 years in Curacao. I was like, "Cool, I'm just ahead by 1 hour half the year." But moving to Egypt, it's like 10 hours from Seattle, and I work a lot on Pacific time. A lot of my client base is on the West Coast. I have clients all over the world, but I work out of
mhm,
there a lot, and that's going to be challenging. So it's looking, okay, what days of the week am I going to see people later in the evening? How do I set up my schedule
mhm,
as a digital nomad to make this work for me, my clients, and my family?
right. Right, yeah, you're gonna have, a couple nights that are
Yep,
late nights
yep,
working and kids and dad, you're on your own tonight, you're making dinner and
exactly.
I gotta work.
Yep,
Uh,
and we've had that conversation.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, and that's what it's all about, though. It's having conversation and understanding. But with that being said, though, too, you look at the opposite where you have a lot of your mornings could be free. So you've got
Yeah,
that quality time first thing in the morning with the kids and your
absolutely.
husband and, you know, meditate, workout, like whatever your routine is. That's what I love about being in Montenegro is I still get up at about 7 o'clock in the morning, but I don't have any meetings or anything that I need to be online for, usually before 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah,
I'm still like, I do start work before that, but I know, like, I've got my morning routine that I can do and anything I need to go out and do and everything, and then, yeah, sometimes I am working till 8, 9, a lot of times 10 o'clock at night. Now, I'm single, it's just me, don't have kids now, so that's fine, and I've adjusted that, and I do enjoy it. Now when I head back to Canada, that's gonna change a bit because then still to be on those North American hours, it will be more of that meetings are at 9,
at
10
9, yeah,
because that's how they are, it's just the time difference. So,
right.
we have to be prepared too as travel to adjust to that okay, well, if I have a Monday meeting at 9 a.m. every week, sure, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here, but when I'm back in Canada, I need to be prepared like 9 a.m. That's when that meeting is, and
Right.
adjust that schedule again.
Yep. We're flexible.
That's right. And I mean, and I do enjoy that too because there's as human beings, we need to have a certain amount of schedule and predictability and things like that. But we also have a need to have things that are unpredictable and new and different and change, because that's what keeps our brain active and going. Is having those things, and if we're just the
Absolutely.
same every day, our brain starts to deteriorate faster. So I look at those things as a pro, as good, because then it's like, "Oh, readjust. It's new, it's a change, it's
Yep.
okay." And it keeps me kind of more alert and active and being like, "Okay, it's
Yep.
new."
I agree.
So before we wrap up a little bit, I'd like to talk a little bit about your book
Yeah.
and what you do and how people could connect with you.
Sure. I wrote my memoir, Passports and Parasites, An Extraordinary Journey of Adventure, Resilience, and Healing, a couple of years ago at the behest of my husband. And I was like, I'm never writing a book. He's like, you really need to write a book. So I was like, okay. So I wrote and published the book, and it looks back at the last 15 years of my life. And it's one part adventure travel log. People who travel will love it, or want to travel will love it, because I take you on a journey through 42 countries almost, and living in 5 of those, and all the exploration, but then also the real life that happened, fertility issues, chronic illness, sick parents, COVID, everything, it all is sort of encompassed in this book. And so, for a long time I worked for the government, and then I got really sick with Lyme disease, and I had to stop working, and I had my kids at that same time, and it was a really, really big struggle in my life, which you would see in the book as well. And I decided, okay, I want to really work with people who are also going through these issues. And so I went and got my health coaching certificate, and then I went through 2.5 years of functional medicine training, and I've just kept learning and learning and learning. And I have my business, VashtiKanahele.com, where you can find the book and also how to work with me if you have chronic illness or just want to get healthier. Um, you can work with me. And I work with a naturopathic physician out of Seattle. And we find that when we work together, we get really good results. When someone's seeing a coach, I help keep the wheels on the bus, so to speak. And
Mhm.
then they
Mhm.
see the doctor there as well. So that's a really good combination for people to get better and stay better, which is really something that people want, but is often hard to do. And so, that's how we look at the work we do, is really helping people stay better. Um, so yeah, it all comes from me being sick and really seeing that there was a really big gap in health and
Mm.
healthcare, and people listening, providers hearing me and listening to me. Um, and I wanted to do better for other people.
Well, and I think it's great because there are so many gaps in the healthcare systems around the world. I don't think
Yeah,
there is an ideal system anywhere. There's pros and
yeah,
cons to all of them. And
absolutely.
I think people ultimately also need to take more responsibility for their own healthcare and be aware. Like before, it'd be like, I'll go to the doctor because the doctor knows everything, but they're people and they don't, and they're overwhelmed as well. And I'm not saying that we don't need them, because we definitely need doctors
Yes.
and we need medicine because they have things that we can't do. But I also believe that if we did more things for ourselves and were more aware of what we could do, um, that also helps. So then we would be healthier and less dependent on doctors who, as human beings, are also limited
Hmm.
as well. So,
Yeah.
I think the combination is fantastic.
Yeah. And people know their body best, and that's not what we've been taught, you know?
Right.
And so it's really helping people advocate for themselves, in the medical system, learning to trust their own intuition on their body. And yes, absolutely, we need life-saving medicines and doctors and all of that stuff. we needed. But,
Right.
there's so much, like you said, that you can learn and do for yourself. And then we really just try to help people get to that root cause so like they can find out what's going on with them. We're not slapping a band-aid on it. We're really
Mhm.
health detectives figuring out what's going on and helping people live healthier lives.
Yeah, no, it's very important. It's great. And I will make sure that we have links in the show notes to make it even
Okay.
easier for people to connect with you and get your book. And
Okay.
I just want to say again, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Sally. It was great.